بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نرحب فيكم في برنامج القانون الرياضي الذي تقيمه لجنة الشؤون القانونية بالاتحاد البحريني لكرة القدم. حاف البداية أنوه لكم بأن في ترجمة فورية للمحاضرة يمكن اختيارها من خانة اللغة، اختيار اللغة العربية للترجمة، بالإضافة إلى إمكانية إضافة الأسئلة اللي تودون طرحها على المحاضر من خلال خانة Q&A الموجودة أعلى الشاشة أو في بعض الأجهزة في أسفل الشاشة، لكن يرجى توجيه الأسئلة باللغة الإنجليزية حتى يتمكن المحاضر من الإجابة عليها في نهاية المحاضرة. Good afternoon and welcome to the Sport Law program. We are deeply honored to have Mr. Benoit Bissiquier, an attorney at law specialized in sport law with wide and rich experience. He is a CAS arbitrator, founder of PP Sport Law Company, a Swiss qualified and registered attorney in Zurich, holds an international master in sports law, former deputy secretary of the FIFA Ethics Committee and the FIFA Disciplinary Committee, former general counsel and director of legal affairs of the Asian Football Confederation, and an expert in disciplinary and ethics proceeding, good governance, and sport integrity issues. Mr. Bissiquier will be our distinguished speaker today, who will be presenting to us a lecture under the title of Match Fixing, a Threat to Football's Integrity. We are sure that your respected presence and professional expertise, Mr. Bissiquier, will enhance the experience of all participants. Mr. Bissiquier, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Thank you for the kind introduction. So good afternoon, everyone. It's still the morning here in Zurich. So as Ibrahim said, my name is Benoit Bissiquier. I'm a Swiss attorney at law. And I spent quite a lot of time in Asia, and in particular also in Manama in Bahrain, since I was working for Sheikh Salman, the AFC president. So today we're going to talk about match fixing and the threat that it has on the integrity of matches and competitions from an Asian perspective, because I would like to focus on Asia by giving you a few examples. And we will also talk about a very important CAS decision that was passed a few years back that put the grounds on how to investigate a match fixing case and what kind of evidence we need in order to sanction the individuals that are involved in match fixing. So we'll go through the following agenda, just a short introduction about myself, and then we'll talk about match fixing. And as I mentioned, we'll talk about several cases that occurred in Asia, but also here in Europe. About myself, as Ibrahim mentioned, I'm a Swiss attorney at law specialized in sports law. I did a master in Madrid at the ISDE in 2010. I had the chance, part of that master, to work for another very famous attorney at law based in Rio, Marcos Mota. I spent 6 months there, and I was able to work on several contracts, and in particular the sponsorship contract of Nike for Neymar. So I was very happy to be there and be able to review this kind of contracts, because when you know that Neymar is now one of the best players in the world, it's very very nice and very grateful to be involved in such kind of work. And I started my career in football at FIFA, because prior to that, as a good Swiss citizen, I worked in a bank and I didn't like it. So I decided to quit my job and do my master in sports law. So after that master, I had the chance to work for FIFA, and there I was deputy secretary of the FIFA Disciplinary and Ethics Committee. And after 2.5 years, Sheikh Salman, who just got elected AFC president, requested my boss at that time at FIFA for a new lawyer to take over the legal department at the AFC. And I was proposed that position, and obviously I didn't think twice, and I said, okay, let's take that opportunity. And I moved to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, where I was appointed general counsel of the AFC. And I stayed for nearly 7 years there. I had a great experience, met a lot of nice people. I traveled several times to Manama in Bahrain. I really enjoyed my time there. And also during my time at the AFC, I was a member of the campaign team of Sheikh Salman when he was running for the FIFA presidential elections in 2016. Unfortunately, we didn't win, or Sheikh Salman didn't win those elections, but it was a very good experience, and we traveled the world together with the campaign team and with Sheikh Salman, and I think it was a great experience. Since 2019, I'm a Kasabi trader, so I'm on the football list and on the general list, so meaning that parties can appoint me to decide on their case, so in football, but also in other sports. And so far, since 2019, I have been appointing more than 30 cases. In May 2020, I decided to come back to Switzerland with my family and start my own business. So I launched my own law firm specialized in sports law, BP Sports Law here in Zurich. And if you come to Zurich, please let me know, because my office is just across the FIFA Museum. And I would be more than happy to take you there and to guide you in the museum, because it's a very nice museum. And especially since we are all football fans, we like to see those kind of museums. So don't hesitate. I will share my contact details at the end of this session with you guys. And don't hesitate to contact me if you come to Zurich. It's a bit cold today, but during the summer, it's nice. So don't hesitate to contact me. And also since 2021, I'm also a member of Rexport. This is an association of attorneys at laws that are specialized in sports law. And I'm also a member of the UCI License Commission since 2021. That commission is in charge of granting license to the professional cycling teams to participate in the World Tour for each season. So let's start now about the topic of today. What is match fixing? So before going into the detail of what exactly match fixing is, I would like to show you footage of a match that occurred during my time at the AFC. And you will see that it's a very strange match action. And you can think about why that match action happens. So let me just show you this short video. So hopefully it will be. So that match was a match between the national team of Uzbekistan, under 16 tournaments, or under very young players. And that match was between Uzbekistan and North Korea. It was the last match of the group stage, and North Korea was first of the groups, and Uzbekistan was second. And you will see that one team apparently wanted to lose that match on purpose. So here's the match action. This is the goalkeeper from Uzbekistan. And surprise, the goalkeeper from North Korea is outside his box. Here's the replay. And obviously he's not doing his best to catch the ball, falling twice. And obviously the goalkeeper from Uzbekistan was very happy to have scored a goal from his own box. So very strange match action, I have to say. I think we can all agree about that. And it's quite worrying to see this kind of match action in a very young tournament, under 16. So those players are very young. So imagine that they are already involved in a kind of match fixing here. So what happened here, actually, North Korea wanted to lose that game on purpose because they wanted to finish second in the group stage, because they knew already against which team they would play in the second round. So meaning they lost that match on purpose in order to play against a weaker team, in their opinion, in the second round. So here they fixed the match. So obviously, when we saw that footage at the AFC, we decided to open an investigation and obviously to interview the goalkeeper from North Korea and also to coach to understand what was that match action, why the goalkeeper was outside of his box. And we find out that indeed the coach had instructed his team, and in particular the goalkeeper, to concede goals in order to lose that match on purpose. So those individuals, the coach of the national team of North Korea and the goalkeeper of North Korea, were suspended for 1 year. And also the whole team was excluded from the competition. So you can imagine, if you're not involved or you didn't know the instruction of the coach to the goalkeeper and you want to play, you're a young player, you want to play in that tournament, and suddenly we tell you that you're disqualified from the tournament. It's a shame, especially for young players that are at the start of their career. So what is match fixing? We define match fixing as the improper influence of the result or the course of a game for an advantage. So we can fix a match for the result, or we can fix a match, let's say, how many red cards you're going to have during a match for each team. So obviously, sometimes people will bet on matches and say, okay, that particular team will get 2 red cards during the match. And if that happened, then obviously those people who received a red card will receive some money because they were in contact with criminal syndicates who approached them and say, look, guys, if you receive 2 red cards in that match, we will give you $10,000. So if this happened, this obviously is the influence of the course of a game. So for what kind of advantage? So as shown on the video, you can fix a match for sporting reason. So in a tournament, you want to lose the last group stage match in order to end second and then to play against a weaker team. Or if in your domestic league, your team is about to be relegated, there is still 1 match left. If you win that last match, you're not relegated. So you approach the other team against whom you're going to play and you tell them, look, guys, you are already out of the relegation zone. You're not going to win the championship this year. So why don't we agree that we win the match against you? And so we are not relegated. And obviously here you fix the match for sporting reason, for not being relegated. But the more common reason for fixing a match is obviously money. And here, having experienced a lot of cases in Asia, criminal syndicates, those are the ones who are behind fixing matches, they approach players, mainly young players in developed or underdeveloped country because they have the financial means to go there and provide or propose money to young players saying, look, I give you $1,000 if you concede a goal in the first half. $1,000 for those criminal syndicates is not a lot of money, but for the players in certain region of the world, it's a lot of money. And just to give you an example, it was a Saturday, I remember we had a youth tournament in Asia, and I got a call from the president of a member association who was participating in that tournament, and he called me and said, look, you need to help me because we are in the lobby of the hotel departing for our training session, and there are people approaching my young kids, and we don't know those people, we don't know what they are talking about, we don't know what they are offering, but we need to get those people out of the lobby of the hotel because I don't want my young players be talking to stranger. And obviously those people were not very nice since the president of that member association tried to talk to them, asking them what they were doing. And we found out after an investigation that those people who were in the lobby of the hotel approaching those young players were from a criminal syndicate. But here, what do you do when you face criminal syndicates? You don't have any powers because you are just a sporting organization, you organize tournaments, you try to organize football matches, and sanctioning those criminal syndicates, you can't, because they don't come under the sporting jurisdiction. You can only sanction players, coaches, football officials, and that's it. You cannot go after the criminal syndicates. So that's the problem when you face a match fixing case, is you can take out the players from the pitch, but unfortunately, the criminal syndicates surrounding the players, the clubs, are not under the jurisdiction of the sporting organization. So that's where usually you will need to find a way to prevent that, and also to collaborate with certain other competent authorities, as I will explain it later on. So how do we prevent match fixing in football? That's the $1 million question. It's very difficult, but I always say it's like with young children. You have to teach them what they can do, what they cannot do. So the same happens with players, because when I joined in the AFC in 2013, we were at the beginning of putting a strategy in place in order to prevent match fixing in Asia, and especially in the AFC competitions, and also in the member association, because you can imagine if there is match fixing, people are talking about match fixing in the AFC competition, they're talking about match fixing in member associations, then you will lose your commercial partners, because your commercial partners, they don't want to invest money in fixed matches or fixed competition, and they don't want to be associated with match fixing. So I remember when we started to put together a strategy to tackle match fixing in Asia, we had also to put certain clauses in our commercial agreement with our commercial partners, that if there is a case of match fixing in the AFC competition, then obviously the commercial partner will be entitled either for a reduction of the money that they are putting on the table, like sponsorship fee, or they might, in the worst case scenario, be able to terminate the commercial agreement. So here again, the consequences of having a competition or tournaments fixed might have a lot of commercial consequences. So how do we prevent match fixing? There are certain measures that you can put in place, and that was the strategy that we put in place, and I think it's still the strategy adopted in all the member associations around the globe, and also in the confederations, but also at FIFA level and in all the sports as well. So prevention is the first measure that you can take. And how can we prevent? First of all, by imposing good governance in your organization, so meaning to have the right rules to prevent match fixing in your member association or in the confederation or at a worldwide level. Once you have the legal framework or the good governance framework, obviously you have to raise awareness among the players, the coaches, and the football officials, just to tell them what is match fixing, what are the threats of match fixing, and obviously what are the consequences of being involved in match fixing. So here you need to raise awareness by training them, by giving them booklets, by developing a video that they can watch before the season start. So a lot of tools that you can provide to the players and the football officials in order to raise awareness, because we faced several instances in Asia where you talk to the players and the young players, and they didn't know that they were not entitled to talk to people, to receive money, to get the red card on purpose. And more specifically, they didn't understand the consequences, because as I will show it to you afterwards, the consequences of being involved in match fixing are harsh. So you can end your career, because if you are suspended for several years for your involvement in match fixing, the club of the player might terminate the employment contract, because what's the point of having a player that is suspended for 2 to 4 years? You have to pay him a salary. That doesn't make any sense. So you can terminate the employment contract of the player if the player has been convicted in match fixing. So once you have raised awareness and trained those players and also football officials, obviously the work doesn't stop, because you have still to monitor the football matches and football tournaments, because you need to check that the players are following the rules. So here you have to monitor, and you can use different companies that help you to monitor football matches, especially the betting patterns on football games. I will explain a little bit more in details afterwards how does it work. And once you monitor and detect a match that might be fixed, obviously you have to take a response. You have to investigate a suspicious match, for instance. You have to interview the players, the coach. You have maybe to engage technical people who can look at the match action and provide the feedback whether the goalkeeper was playing it right, or whether he was too weak, or whether he was conceding a goal on purpose. And once you have built a case, obviously the ultima ratio is the sanctioning power of the sporting organization. And here several players were sanctioned, also referees that were involved in fixing matches. So it's very important to understand, to share with the players, football officials, referees, and so on, the consequences of being involved in match fixing. So let's start with the first measure, prevention. Obviously, you have to put in place regulations. So you have to have in the statutes of your organization a rule that says that you have to prevent any integrity related matter on competitions and matches. You have, as I mentioned, to raise awareness, and also you have to collaborate with other key stakeholders. So as a member association, let's say the Bahrain Football Association, obviously you have to collaborate with the AFC, with FIFA, with also the other member association in the Gulf region, because match fixing has a cross-border impact, because criminal syndicates might come from Singapore, from China, from Malaysia, or from Europe, and they might fix matches in another territory. So here you need to work together as a team to prevent match fixing in your territory, but also to help the other if you have suddenly some information that some people in your federation or in your territory are fixing matches abroad. So here it's very important to have a collaboration with all the stakeholders. So legal framework. So let's start from the top of the football pyramid. You all know that the football is organized in a pyramidal structure. So at the top, we have FIFA, that is the world governing body of football. And obviously in their statutes or their constitutions, one of their objectives is to promote integrity, ethics, and fair play with a view to preventing all methods that might jeopardize the integrity of matches, competitions, player, official, and so on. So here you have the first legal basis to prevent match fixing. Then obviously FIFA imposes also on the confederations, such as the AFC in Asia, that the confederation statute must also comply with the principles of good governance. And here again, the confederation have to take measures to protect the integrity of the competition. So here, FIFA is imposing to the AFC, for instance, to take the measures required to protect the integrity of competitions. Moving down, AFC, this time, at the Article 2, and again, objectives, they have the same objectives as FIFA. So obviously here, again, the AFC has to take the measures to prevent any risk in respect to the integrity of matches and competitions. The AFC also has an article in respect to the promotion of friendly relations, and here I quote, "Every person and organization involved in the game of football is obliged to observe the statutes, regulations, and the principle of fair play, as well as the principle of loyalty, integrity, and sportsmanship." So here, another legal basis to prevent match fixing. And again, the AFC then imposes on its member associations, so Bahrain Football Association, the obligation to observe the principles of loyalty, integrity, and good sporting behavior as an expression of fair play through a statutory provision. So here, the Bahrain Football Association statutes in its Article 3, vision, mission, goals, and values, here takes the same principles as FIFA and the AFC by the means of preventing practices that may hinder the safety of matches and competitions held under the supervision of the association and refrain from all activity that hinder the football matches. So here in the Bahrain Football Association statute, there is also a legal basis preventing match fixing. Following the same principle of good relationship or friendly relationship set out in the AFC statutes, in the Bahrain Football Association statute, there is an article, Article 5, that says that every individual member, association, and or institution involved in the game of football is obliged to observe the provision of these statutes and other relevant regulation and respect the principle of equal opportunity, loyalty, here, integrity, and sportsmanship. So here, all the football stakeholders from the top, FIFA, then AFC, and Bahrain Football Association are on the same page, working together to prevent match fixing in their competitions. Here, very important, again, Bahrain Football Association imposes a duty on their member as follows. They have to observe the principle of loyalty and integrity, sportsmanship, and equal opportunity. So again, here, the Bahrain Football Association can impose a sanction if one of its member is not following that principle. Moving on to the second point of prevention after the good governance structure and the legal framework, as I mentioned, we need to raise awareness and training among the players, staff, and other football officials. So usually what I propose to the member associations is that they should pre-competition organize a workshop where they brief the players, where they brief the coaches, where they brief the other staff of the club about what is match fixing and the consequences of match fixing that can have on their career. Also the same for the referee, to organize an annual referees workshop, just to explain them what is match fixing, maybe to also organize role play, so to put them in real situation and how they can react to an approach to fix a match. Obviously, also it's ongoing process. It's not because you organize every year a same workshop that people will get it. You have to also start building some resources, distributing some booklets, very simple booklets, 10-page maximum, where you can just put some examples of match fixing. You can also promote it, prevention of match fixing, by publishing videos, requesting also the players, the coaches, and the referees to sign in the integrity declaration before the start of the season that they will comply with all the regulations, and in particular the ones related to match fixing. And also at the FC, what we did is that we prepared posters that we put in the locker room so that people can, when they enter the locker room, that they will remind that they shouldn't be involved in match fixing. So once we have put the prevention principle in place, now obviously we need to monitor that everyone is complying with those principles and also put in place some detection measures. So how can we detect match fixing? So obviously here you need to inform the different stakeholders, the players, coaches, staff, and so on, how they can report any information that they have in respect to match fixing, because they have a duty to report. I will explain it to you afterwards. There is an obligation in the football regulations that players, coaches, referees, and other football officials have a duty to report any information that they might have in respect to match fixing. So obviously you have to inform those stakeholders where they can report. So you can share an email address. The AFC launched in 2017 an integrity mobile app. So it's an app that you can download on your phone. You can use it on your iPhone or on other phones, and it's quite easy to use. You can even take some videos, you can record voices, you can send pictures, you can send written reports, and these reports are all ending up with the AFC independent head of integrity. That particular person is not an AFC employee, is a completely independent attorney at law based in Dubai, and those reports are ending in his mailbox, and he will review them, and if he sees that there is something to investigate, then he will instruct the AFC administration to do an investigation in this respect based on the evidence at hand. So it's very important to understand that when the AFC launched that integrity app, the AFC wanted actually that people can trust the process, because sometimes we say, but everything is controlled by the AFC administration or by the other administration of the member association. So here, having somebody completely independent from the administration gives some more support to the zero tolerance policy that the sporting organization have around the world. So very important to share which channel the players or the coaches can use to report any match fixing allegations or information that they might have. Obviously, you have to also to control and check and monitor the media, because sometimes media write stories about match fixing, and obviously you have to follow those stories. And when there are names in the newspaper, you have to follow those names and see whether there is any allegation that is supported by tangible evidence. So media is a good source of information. Sometimes not for the good purpose, but sometimes you can find good information in the media. And obviously, when you monitor the media, you can find some information that will be useful for a case. And obviously, as I said, FIFA, AFC, all the member associations are working hand in hand and obviously share information among themselves. And obviously, when there is an investigation, everybody is working to the right direction. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it's very important that the law enforcement authorities or agency are also involved in the process. Because as I mentioned, the criminal syndicates are behind match fixing. It's not the players. The players are just the puppets that are on the pitch. And those are unfortunately the victims in certain countries, because criminal syndicates have a huge impact on the young players, but also on their family. Because if those young players don't fix a match or don't follow the instructions of those criminal syndicates, the criminal syndicates sometimes will also threaten the family of those players, because obviously in poor country, unfortunately, that's the best way to get to the aim you want. And unfortunately, those criminal syndicates are not under the jurisdiction of the AFC or the Bahrain Football Association. Those criminal syndicates come under the criminal court in the respective countries. Reason why you need to have the police, the local police, or the law enforcement agency in the respective country that can help you arrest maybe those criminal syndicates. Because during my time at the AFC, we tried to approach the different law enforcement agency, and we tried to, we had several meetings with ASEANAPOL, that's the police in the Southeast Asia region. And we explained them, okay, like today I'm explaining what is match fixing, what are the consequences on the sport, but also the amount of money involved here in match fixing, because some people are making a lot of money in fixing matches. So when we started to explain the amount of money involved in match fixing, and also what the criminal syndicate role has in match fixing, they started to be interested, and we started a collaboration with them, because we had several cases in the Southeast Asia region where we needed actually the help of the law enforcement agency in order to arrest or even to interview criminal syndicates. Because I have a kind of a funny story when we had some intel intelligence about a match to be played a friendly match played in Southeast Asia between two teams, and one team was famous for fixing their friendly matches. So we decided, okay, let's send someone from the team, from the legal department to the match, to the friendly match, and see what's happening there. So one of my employees went to the match, and it was obviously in the Southeast region, so very hot weather, humid. Nobody in the stadium, friendly match between two teams. Nobody was interested in that match. And suddenly I was receiving WhatsApp messages and pictures also from the game. And I received pictures of 3 guys wearing winter jackets, hats, in the stadium, and we said, okay, here is something fishy because it's hot. Why would you wear a winter jacket here? And suddenly those guys were changing their clothes during the match, and we could see that the coach of one of the national team was always looking at those 3 persons in the stands of the stadium, and then he was giving instructions to his players. So we thought, okay, here there is something fishy going on. So those guys are changing their winter jacket, wearing another color, changing the hat as well. So we thought, okay, here there is something that we need to investigate. And indeed, those were instructions from the criminal syndicate to the coach on the line of the pitch. And the coach was then giving his instructions to the players to lose the match on purpose by a difference of 4 goals, for instance. So we were able to spot that, but obviously those criminal syndicates also saw that they were under surveillance, because they saw that somebody was watching them. And obviously that particular individual that was at the stadium on my behalf had to leave, because we didn't want him to be in danger, because you never know what can happen with those syndicates. So that was a very interesting stories that we had during my time at DFC. And obviously we had an investigation, and we could confirm that the particular team was fixing friendly matches, and we were able to sanction several individuals of that team. Here's a picture of at the Sportradar offices in London. Since 2013, the AFC has a partnership with Sportradar. Sportradar is a company specialized in collecting data related to sport. And one of the specialty of Sportradar is the monitoring of the betting data related to football matches. So since 2013, the AFC has a partnership with the AFC, and we had in 2019, they prolonged their partnership with the AFC, and they helped the AFC also in 2017 to launch the AFC Integrity app. And what exactly does Sportradar do? So they have different agreements with the betting operators, and those betting operators provide betting data to Sportradar, and Sportradar collects all those data related to a particular match, and they look at the betting patterns of the course of a match. So let's say if the match is still 0-0 at the 85th minute of the game, and suddenly the betting patterns are going up because people are betting on the final score of 4-0. So you can imagine scoring 4 goals in the last 5 minutes of a match is unlikely. But if it happens, then the betting patterns will be very high. So it won't follow the normal course of a football game. So if suddenly the betting patterns are going up, and the final scores end up 4-0 here, then Sportradar will prepare a report and inform the AFC by telling them, look guys, we have some suspicious betting patterns here. People at the 85th minute were betting that the final score of the match would end up 4-0. That was unlikely at that particular time. And obviously something is fishy here, because the score at the end of the match was actually 4-0. So here there is a suspicious match. So the role of a sporting organization, when they receive a report like this, they have to look at the match action. They have to look in their intel whether to see if they have certain players that are already suspicious because they were involved in certain match actions that are not that were suspicious at that time. So based on that report, you can slowly start to look into an investigation into that particular match. So Sportradar is very famous for that. They are very good, very helpful at the AFC. They have collaboration with, I think, almost the member associations in Asia. They also work with FIFA, with UEFA, and I think it's very relevant what they do, especially when it comes to betting patterns. They are the best. They know what they do, and their reports are very clear, and it's very useful to work with them, especially to prevent match fixing in Asia. So when you have a match, or if you have a Sportradar report, you receive that report, you maybe have one match action that is suspicious, like the one we saw at the beginning in the match between Uzbekistan and North Korea. So you need to slowly start an investigation. But how do we start? So you need to look in your records to see, okay, that particular team is famous because we have received several reports from Sportradar flagging certain matches where they played. So you need to look at the match action, you need to look at the list of players that are playing, and then you need to start slowly to investigate by interviewing certain players, interviewing coaches, see with the member association integrity officer if he has anything in particular, also in respect to the national team or the club playing in their domestic league. And obviously, if you have enough evidence, so let's say you have a witness statement, you have a player who confessed that, yes, indeed, he has been approached and he has conceded a goal on purpose. And obviously here you can bring that case in front of a judicial body, such as a discipline ethics committee in football. And that particular judicial body will then take a decision on whether to suspend a particular player, a referee, or a coach, but also to disqualify a team from a competition, from the domestic league for their involvement in match fixing. So it's very important to understand that you can suspend an individual, so a player, a coach, or a referee, but also you can suspend or disqualify a club or a national team from a competition if the whole team or half of the team is involved in match fixing. Then you can remove that particular team. And obviously you can always, those who have been sanctioned can always appeal those decisions. They can appeal until CAS. If there is also maybe a domestic arbitration tribunal, such as in Bahrain, you can also appeal to that particular tribunal. And it's very important to understand for those who have been sanctioned the way they can appeal the decisions. Here we come to the sanctioning power. So that's where usually players, referees are becoming curious, because that's where you tell them, okay, guys, look, if you are being involved in match fixing, then those are the sanctions that will be imposed on you. So I'm referring here to the AFC Disciplinary Ethics Code, and in its Article 66, referring to the unlawful influence of the match result. So here, if you are involved in a match, in a fixed match, the penalty is a fine of at least $30,000 US. That's for certain countries, that's okay, or for certain players, that's okay. But here, that's where it hurts. It's a ban on taking part in any football-related activity for at least 5 years. So what does it mean, taking part in any football-related activity? So meaning, as a player, you're not entitled to train, you're not entitled to play in the domestic league or with your national team, you're not entitled to work in your club or in your member association. So you're out of football during at least 5 years. That's very important that the players understand that, because if they are about to end their career, they want to work in the administration of the club or they want to work as a coach, they need to understand that they'll be out for at least 5 years. So that's the end of their careers. So as I mentioned, if you are a club, the president of a club, you have an employment contract with a player who just got sanctioned by the AFC or the Bahrain Football Association disciplinary committee for a 5-year period. What are you going to do? Are you going to pay that particular player during 5 years? No, because according to his employment contract, you can terminate his contract for disciplinary measures, and usually the player will lose his contract. And then obviously after the 5 years, it's going to be difficult for that particular player to find a club, because which club would like to transfer a player in his team that was involved in match fixing? So you can imagine the media will make a big story out of it. And obviously a lot of people will watch the games of that particular player who gets transferred to another club, because he has a history of fixing matches. So obviously people will think, okay, based on certain match action, that particular player has continued to fix matches. So very important for the players to understand that the consequences of being involved in match fixing are serious. As I mentioned, the club or also the member association to whom the individual is affiliated may also be jointly and severally liable for match fixing. So meaning if the club knew about any approach to their players for fixing matches and they didn't do anything, then here the competent body can also sanction the club or the member association. And again, here it's a fine of at least $50,000, but disqualification from the current competition if you're in an AFC competition, or the exclusion from future competition. That's also very harsh, because imagine the young players or players that are playing for the national team that play clean and fair play, and suddenly the competent body decides to disqualify the national team. It's a harsh decision to be imposed on those players. So that's where the club, also the member association, needs to understand the consequences of not reporting anything about their player, knowing that they are involved in fixing matches. So also here, a duty to report of the club and the member association. Very important here as well, there is a provision that says that as a player or a coach or a football official, you're not entitled to share any non-public available information. What does it mean? Let's say you're a player and in your team, the goalkeeper is injured, not seriously, but he's injured, and he's still going to be keeping the goals let's say on Saturday during the next domestic league match. So here, that particular information should stay within the circle of the team. You cannot share this information with the public, let's say with your sister, with your brother, with your parent, because they might have a problem on the integrity of the match, because people might think, okay, that team is weaker now because the goalkeeper is injured, he's still going to play. So let's bet against that team. So betting operator will see that a lot of people will bet against your team. So obviously that will have a problem on the integrity of the match, because people will think, okay, if that goalkeeper is injured, the team is weaker. And so here, if you share such kind of information, if you're a player, you might be fined at least $2,000 and also get suspended for at least 2 matches. For other individuals of the club, let's say the coach, the team doctor, and so on, here it's a fine of $1,000 and also a suspension for at least 1 match, or a 1-month suspension from all football-related activity. So very important here, don't share any sensitive information with the public. And here is the legal basis for the duty to report applicable to all football stakeholders. So if you know anything about a suspicious match, about an approach that the criminal syndicate has made to one of your players, you have a duty to report that information to the relevant, using the relevant channels and to the relevant competent authorities. So meaning if you're a player from the club at the domestic league in the Bahrain Football Association, you have to report that information to the Bahrain Football Association. If you are working at the AFC, if you are playing in an AFC competition, you can report it to the AFC integrity officer. You can use the AFC integrity app. So you have here a duty to report, because if you don't do it, here are the sanctions that could be imposed on you, on that particular individual. It's a fine of at least $15,000 and also a ban in taking part in any football-related activity for at least 2 years. So just forgetting that to report an information can lead to a 2-year ban from all football-related activities. So it's a very harsh sanction, serious sanction that can have an impact on your career as well. So it's very important here to keep that in mind, that you have a duty to report. So players, coaches, referees, they must be made aware of that duty to report, because several times during investigations, we noticed that some people in the club were aware, but they didn't do anything. So, and then they are surprised that you open an investigation against those individuals and you sanction them. And the reason why we need to raise awareness about that duty to report to help preventing match fixing in football. Here's another article in respect to betting. So as football players, coaches, other football officials in clubs, national team, in member association, at confederation level, you're not supposed to bet on football matches. Because obviously if you start to bet on your own matches or on the competition of your domestic league, the integrity obviously of the competition might be put in jeopardy. So here, if a player starts to bet on competitions, he will be fined for at least $1,000, but also a 1-match suspension. And for any other individual, it's going to be also a $1,000 fine and also a 1-match suspension or a ban from taking part in any football-related activity for a month. So here, also quite a serious sanction for just betting on football matches or competitions. Let's move on to cases now that occurred in Asia, but also in Europe. So the first one, I guess we all know that particular Saudi referee. And that particular referee, unfortunately for him, just before the World Cup in Russia in 2018, had the bad idea to approach a certain club in Saudi Arabia, Al Ittihad, before the final of the King's Cup. And obviously here the people did the right thing. They followed their duty to report, and they report that approach to fix the final of the King's Cup. And obviously after an investigation, and he confessed as well, which helped obviously the investigation, he was banned for life. So he's out of football for life from all football-related activity following his match-fixing attempt. So he just attempted to fix a match, and he was reported, and that occurred just before the World Cup. So you can imagine it was a disaster for him. His name was everywhere in the media, and obviously now his career in football is over. Another case that was successful because of the good collaboration between the Thai Football Association, the AFC, and FIFA. As you can see here on the picture, there was a picture of the police and certain officials from the Thai Football Association. So It all started with the report that Sportradar provided to the AFC and to the Thai Football Association. And together we gathered more information. We started an investigation. We shared information with the Football Association of Thailand. We had several meetings between the AFC, the Football Association of Thailand, and the Thai police. And this led, fortunately, to the arrest of several individuals, including football officials. And that was a great outcome. And it shows that actually when you collaborate with the police in certain investigation, then the outcome can be bigger because they have the coercive powers to arrest people. Because as a sporting organization like the AFC or the Bahrain Football Association, you cannot arrest people in the street. You can just suspend players, coaches, referees, but the guy who is sitting in the restaurant and is trying to fix matches, you can't arrest him. So you need really the support of the police and be able to investigate properly and to arrest the right people. Because as I mentioned, you can take out the full team on the pitch, but you cannot take out the criminal syndicates that are in the stadium. So we really need to have the police supporting you to take out also those criminal syndicates. Another case that happened in Nepal. So here again, a great support from the Nepalese police. At the end, we also invited the Nepalese police at the AFC headquarters to thank them for their support. So it also started with the reports from Sportradar demonstrating suspicious betting patterns related to national team matches, because the national team was losing all their matches. And we were also able to gather some documentation that proved that some monetary transactions were made to those players by the criminal syndicates. So after that, we shared this information with the Nepal police that started a criminal investigation. Then they arrested the players from the national team. So, and they were charged for treason at that time. So you can imagine, just for fixing match, you were charged by the criminal court for treason to your country. And the criminal sanction for treason in Nepal was life imprisonment. So you can imagine those players were quite scared to spend their time in jail for the rest of their life. So it's one thing to be suspended for life in football, but to be imprisoned for life, that's another level. So luckily for them, Nepal, or the parliament in Nepal, reviewed their legislation, and they included now match manipulation as a criminal offense. And those players were not finally imprisoned for life, but at least for several years. So you can see that when you share information, you raise awareness also with the country parliament, with the country politicians, so that they understand the risk of match fixing that can have on not only on their national team, but also on the country itself. Then they start to look into it and start to include match fixing in their legislation. And one of the greatest after effect of that case is that the national team of Nepal started to win matches. So you took out the black sheep of the national team, the guys who were fixing the matches, you take them out, and then surprise, surprise, the national team started to win matches. So that was the best outcome you can have, is to have the team actually play good football and win matches. Another case at the AFC is the AFC at that time suspended and banned 22 people from different countries in Southeast Asia, from Laos and Cambodia. That was a big investigation. Also here we had several reports from Sportradar in respect to the betting patterns related to the match of the club Lao Toyota. And we were able afterwards a thorough investigation to suspend 22 players and officials. those guys were also banned for life. Not only success, but here that was, we had the relevant, at the AFC, we had the relevant evidence to disqualify the club from Cambodia, Phnom Penh. But there was a procedural error from our part. So I always accept that we all can make errors, so we need to accept them. So in that particular case, actually, we had the disciplinary committee at the AFC who suspended several players. And that was in, I think, during the summer, and Phnom Penh qualified then in November for the AFC Cup. So at the AFC, we decided, okay, look, those players were suspended by the AFC disciplinary committee. The club, in our opinion, it was also involved in match fixing in accordance to the AFC regulations. If a club is directly or indirectly involved in match fixing, you can disqualify them for the AFC Cup or the AFC Champions League. So the AFC administration at that time decided to disqualify the club from the AFC Cup. So obviously the club wasn't happy with that outcome, because they say, look, you already suspended our players, the disciplinary committee already suspended the players, so why are you now disqualifying the whole club? So they appealed that decision to CAS, and CAS said, even based on the evidence, there's a clear involvement of the club in match fixing. However, the AFC should have decided via its AFC Competitions Committee, because the AFC Competitions Committee was the competent body in charge of all competitions related matter. So CAS decided that the AFC administration was not entitled to disqualify the club, but it was the AFC Competitions Committee. So it was just a question of which body was competent to disqualify a club. So we were quite not angry, but we were very disappointed by the outcome of that case. So, lesson learned, we decided to set up also a judicial body in charge of deciding of the entry of the clubs to participate in the AFC club competition. So that particular body is called now the Entry Club Body. And that body is in charge of checking the eligibility of clubs to participate in the AFC club competition. So if a club is involved in match fixing, so that particular body will decide based on the evidence to disqualify that particular club. But also if that club doesn't comply with the AFC club licensing criteria, or even the club licensing criteria in their respective member association, then that particular entry control body can disqualify a particular club to play for the AFC club competition. So lesson learned here, that's the reason why now the AFC has an entry control body in charge of deciding on the eligibility of clubs. Here we all know that famous player. It's my favorite club as well, AC Milan. What happened to him? I don't know if you know the story about him, but he got into troubles because he invested money in a betting company in Sweden, his country. So he invested some money there, and obviously he must have a lot of lawyers and other special advisors surrounding him, but they didn't check the UEFA regulations, because in those regulations, it says that you are not, as a player or as a coach, entitled to have investments in a betting company. So that player, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, was fined 50,000 euros by UEFA because he had invested money in a betting company. So you can see that as a player, you're not supposed to first bet on football matches and competition, but also to invest money in betting companies. Finally, that's a famous case that happened here in Europe with the Albanian club Skanderberg. And that particular case is set the foundations of how or which evidence you need when you investigate and when you submit a case to the relevant judicial body, because here Sportradar was involved, and CAS went through different questions that was very relevant. And now we have some jurisprudence, some case law that helps us now to understand how to build a case when it comes to match fixing. So what happened in this case? So UEFA has betting fraud detection system. So it's actually what Sportradar does. They monitor the betting patterns on all the football matches in Europe. And here, that particular club from Skanderberg, there were more than 50 matches or 50 reports involving the club Skanderberg, where the result of their match were allegedly manipulated for betting purposes. So you can imagine 50 matches, 50 reports. So you think twice or say, look, there's something wrong here. So reason why when they qualified for the Champions League for the season 2016-2017, the UEFA ethics and disciplinary inspectors told the UEFA General Secretary to disqualify them. So they submitted a report. They submitted that report to the UEFA Control Ethics and Disciplinary Body, so to consider their eligibility to play in the Champions League due to the fact that they had 50 matches with suspicious match actions for betting purposes. So obviously UEFA had to investigate that case, and after an investigation, UEFA decided the following, that the club is not eligible to play the UEFA Champions League competition for the season 2016-2017. Obviously the club didn't agree with that decision, and they appealed that decision to CAS, and the CAS panel in that particular case had to decide on the following points: whether the proceedings of disqualifying a club from a competition is from a disciplinary or an administrative nature, because you can, as a disciplinary body, you can sanction individuals, you can suspend individuals, but you can also disqualify clubs and national team from competition. So that's a disciplinary sanction. You can disqualify a club or a national team from participating in a competition for several years. But here, there is one decision to decide that the club is not eligible to play for the Champions League for one season. So the CAS panel had to decide whether it's a disciplinary or an administrative nature. Also, the CAS panel had to decide the relevance and the credibility of the evidence provided to the UEFA judicial body, and also by the means of the betting fraud detection system of UEFA, so the reports that they received on certain matches. And finally, to decide whether the club was directly or indirectly involved in match-fixing activity based on the evidence of the detecting system, also on the investigation and the evidence gathered, and also the national and international perception of the club. So the first question that the panel had to answer was, since the decision was to disqualify the club from the European competition for 1 year. So when you club qualify, you have to submit an entry form to the UEFA secretariat, but also the same happens in the AFC level. If your club at the domestic league in Bahrain is qualified, you have to submit an entry form to the AFC General Secretariat, and that form, you have to sign it. You have to declare that you will comply with all the regulations applicable to the club competition and so on, and you submit that form. This is an administrative act of submission, the form of a club that has qualified on sporting merits for a club competition. So that first stage, the CAS panel decided it was an administrative nature, because the administrative measure is aimed not to sanction the club, but to protect the values and objectives of the competition, its reputation and also its integrity. Obviously, here, as Uma mentioned, it's an administrative measure, so we disqualify the club, but at the same time, you could take, the relevant competent body could take another disciplinary measures to disqualify that club for several years. So we have one administrative nature, and you have one disciplinary nature measure. So then the CAS panel had to decide on the relevance and credibility of all the evidences submitted. So obviously the burden of proof relies on the sporting organization, here in this particular case, UEFA, and the standard of proof is one of comfortable satisfaction. So in order to conclude that match has been fixed, so you have one thing, you have all the 50 reports, but that's not enough. You need more. You cannot base your decision on 50 reports. It says, okay, you have 50 reports, there's something wrong. Then you need to investigate, you get more evidence to build the case. So here we had second evidence that the prominent Asian bookmaker removed the live market before the end of the match. So they removed the match of that particular club from the live market. So people couldn't bet on that match because that bookmaker thought that the matches of that particular club from Albania were fixed. And obviously then they were able to prove that also there were some suspicious match actions from certain players. So here you can hire technical advisors who can look at match actions and tell you, yes, the goalkeeper played well here, or the defender didn't play the best here. So you need to have those advisors and specialists provide you reports as well, so you can build the case. So at the end, the CAS panel decided that based on the evidence at hand, the club was indeed involved in fixing matches. And obviously, the final question was, what are the consequences of the involvement of the club in match fixing? So UEFA had a legal basis actually to declare that club ineligible. And then the question was whether that measure to declare the club ineligible was disproportionate, illegal, or contrary to public policy. And the CAS panel decided that no, that there was a legal basis for such a sanction, that the sanction was not disproportionate and it was not contrary to public policy. So at the end, the CAS panel decided to dismiss the appeal lodged by Skanderberg. And that case is very important for us lawyers to understand the validity of the Sport Radar reports, but also to understand how to build a case in order to sanction clubs and players that are involved in match fixing. So you have the reports, but also then you need to find other evidence that would support those reports. So you have a copy of money transfers, you have confessions of players and so on. You also need to put the puzzle together to have the clear picture of a club being involved in match fixing. So that's it from my side. I hope it was clear. I hope you enjoyed it. And now we'll go through the questions. So I don't know if there is any questions. Okay, so I see up here the chat. Okay, so the first question from Syed. So yeah, the problem is, as you mentioned, for the players who are playing in the lower category of football, that's the best target for criminal syndicates, because those players, they need some money, obviously, because they're not playing the best leagues or at the highest level. You need to investigate. That's the whole beauty of that work is to gather all the evidence to prove that that particular player has either been involved in match fixing or has bet against his team. So you need to check, be able to prove that he received money, that his bets were successful. It takes some time. And obviously, when you invite a player to come to your office and for an interview, most of them don't come. So you have to force them because they have a duty to collaborate also with the sporting organization. So there are several ways to make those players speak. And you also then need to explain them the consequences. If we can prove that that player was involved, if you tell him, look, if you don't help us, if we can prove that you have been involved in match fixing, then those are the consequences. So when you tell him that he can be suspended for several years, then suddenly the player wakes up and say, okay, I don't want to have that huge sanction. I want to collaborate. I want to provide other names of other players or other people that are also involved. Then you can find some mitigating factors to reduce his suspension if he starts to speak and to talk to you. Then Q&A, just check it. Just trying to go on the... Okay, that has been also... easiest targets is, as I mentioned, is the lower leagues, the young players, where they need the money. So in certain leagues, players are not making a lot of money. So usually people will target those players where you can propose them $2,000, and for them it's a huge amount of money. So that's the easiest targets, unfortunately, for the criminal syndicates that are targeting young players. Thank you. Good question in respect to the penalty of the club. So obviously you need to prove that usually individuals are involved in match fixing. So if you look into a certain match action, so you see, okay, the goalkeeper didn't play well, the defender didn't play well, so you start investigating those guys. And if those guys slowly start to also talk to you and say, look, the club was aware that we were fixing that match, then you start to investigate and you start to interview the coach or even the general secretary of the club or the technical director, just to see the whole picture of a case. And if you can prove that indeed people were aware of the players' behavior on the pitch, then here you can start also to investigate or start an investigation into the club's officials and obviously charge them with match fixing. But usually you start from the guys on the pitch because that's where match fixing happened. And then obviously when you have some information, then you start going into the administration of the club. Any other questions?
Actually, I think maybe that's it.
Yeah, just the last one. Maybe it's yeah. I remember when I left the AFC, I think they decreased the number of suspicious matches decreased by 30%. So it was very low, and I'm sure that now they're even lower because they're still doing a great job in Asia. So I think Asian football is hopefully in safe hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bisquier. First of all, I'd like to say that was a very interesting presentation. For me, I have actually one question for you. You know, sometimes that, especially in the groups, you have sometimes that the first place is guaranteed for a certain, let's say, club. And then there's a match between the third and the fourth places. That is, if someone wins, he might get the qualification with the first place and second. We usually see that the club in the first place maybe would play with, would say that the top players will be on the bench out of the match. Can that be part of match fixing, or is it just something to get suspicious with without being able to say that it's part of match fixing?
Good questions. We all know, and I played football as well, and sometimes we knew also that, okay, you want to keep the good players. Some of them are a little bit injured. You want to keep them on the bench. You maybe put the B team on the pitch. But obviously here, it can be considered as match fixing for sporting reasons. If you say okay, you're playing against the team that is about to be relegated, they need 3 points, and they tell you, okay guys, look, it's the last match of the season, we need absolutely to win that match, just play it easy. We show the world, okay, we play hard, and 1-1 at the halftime, and then we score 1 or 2 goals in the second half, so we win the match. Obviously, it's all a question of how to prove it. Obviously, if one team is playing with the B or even C team, you say, okay, question mark, why are they playing with the B or C team here? Even with the academy, you put the academy players on the pitch against the first team of another club. So it's okay, here's something suspicious. And obviously, if it's the last match of the domestic league, you see that the club's about to be relegated, say, hold on, here, there's something fishy. Then you can start an investigation, and because it's too obvious. It's too obvious. So, but again, how you're going to prove it? It's obvious maybe on the eyes of the public, but how are you going to prove it? You need to have somebody to confess, okay, yes, we discussed with the other club. Here are some WhatsApp messages that we exchanged with the other players, that we were about to fix that match for sporting reason to save us from relegation. So you need to have those evidence, but it's always very difficult to get those ones, especially sometimes players just don't want to speak, and they know exactly what they're doing. So yeah, but sometimes you just put them, okay, look at that match action, like in the case of the North Korean team, where you have the goalkeeper leaving his box and jumping and then falling down twice when he was running after the ball. So here you tell him, hey guy, you play in the national team, so what are you doing out of your box and trying to catch the ball afterwards, falling down twice? So yeah, so you can tell him, look, you're not a professional player here, you're a clown.
Thank you. That was very clear. Thank you, Mr. Bessikier, for such an enlightening and entertaining presentation on match fixing, a threat to football's integrity. We appreciate having such an important topic clarified by sharing your valuable knowledge with all participants. It was of a great pleasure having you with us today, Mr. Benoit Bessikier. And once again, on behalf of Bahrain Football Association and everyone here today, thank you very much for being our distinguished speaker in the Sport Law program.
Thank you very much. And as I mentioned, don't hesitate to contact me if you come to Zurich. We'll go together to the FIFA Museum. Here are my contact details, email, and my WhatsApp mobile phone. So happy to help you.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day, and see you hopefully in person next time.
Oh yes, inshallah. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.